This is a podcast from BFM 89.9, the business station.
Thanks for staying tuned to The Morning Run. It is 8:37. It's Tuesday, the 5th of December. You're listening to Philip C., Anwar, Mahbob, and I'm Wong, Ning. Now, in about 30 minutes, we have the opening bell where we check out how Bursa Malaysia begins the trading day. But before that, let's talk about the progressive wage model that was talked about last week, where we saw the white paper. So it's been introduced. It's detailing its upcoming progressive wage model, or PWM, which is set to be implemented in June next year. The focus of the policy will be on micro, small and medium enterprises, since they're 97% of Malaysian businesses and also one of the largest employers in the country. So this is only for employees that earn 5,000 ringgit and below.
While MNCs and GLCs are excluded from this program as they are deemed to pay progressive wages already. However, participation in the program is voluntary, but employers who join will receive financial incentives of between 200 to 300 ringgit monthly for each entry-level and non-entry-level worker.
Economy Minister Rafizi Ramli estimated that allocating 2 billion ringgit for incentives would benefit over 1 million workers through the program. But will the key measures in this policy improve income gaps, job quality and productivity?
For some perspective on this, we have on the line with us Carmelo Ferlito. He is the CEO for the Centre for Market Education. Good morning, Carmelo. Always good to speak to you. Now, Economy Minister Rafizi Ramli emphasised that the adoption of this progressive wage model by employers will be voluntary. Why do you believe it shouldn't be mandatory, considering its potential to elevate both wages and work productivity?
In general, allow me to say that I agree with the move of making this policy not mandatory. First of all, because is something still, to be observed, how it will work, how it will be implemented, how the people will react. Second, because we have a very high number of small, medium enterprises in Malaysia that may find difficult the application and understanding of the policy. And third, because I think the policy itself is not clear enough yet. So we have not enough clarity on what the mechanism, how the mechanism would really look like, which are the indicators that measure productivity. And indeed, I realize that measuring productivity is not that straightforward. Okay, so is a very smoky measure if we talk at micro level, like measuring really the productivity of each individual employee. And then I find it challenging to believe that indeed such a mechanism in itself can indeed improve productivity and wages on a large scale.
Carmelo, the progressive wage model policy targets workers earning below 5,000 ringgit monthly. Could the PWM provide a solution or bring about a positive impact on our wage landscape?
You see, I'm not so sure. First of all, because as I mentioned earlier, the mechanism is yet to be clarified in detail. And I find every kind of mechanism that looks at a sort of automatism very difficult to bring a broad advantage. Also because there are no real evidence that wages increase when productivity increase. I did actually a few calculations yesterday, and if we look at the long run in the period, in example, between 2016 and 2023 in Malaysia, wages grew faster than productivity, okay? Almost at the double speed of productivity. If we look in the past 8 years, from 2015 until 2023. But if we take a shorter period, in example, from the pre-pandemic, from 2019 until now, productivity grew slightly more than wages. Wages actually declined in relative terms compared to the pre-pandemic. So we haven't reached yet the level of pre-pandemic wages. And instead, productivity grew more than what it was at a pre-pandemic level. So you see, it's difficult to find a direct statistical link between productivity, for whatever it means, because it's also quite difficult to see how to actually measure that, and wage behavior. So to have an automatic mechanism to link them is somehow going against what happened in reality. The reality of wage determination in the labor market is just more complex than simply a link to productivity.
Now, employees would also be eligible to receive cash incentives for implementing the policy. What might be the reason behind the government's choice of offering incentives instead of increasing the minimum wage?
Well, you see, increasing minimum wage brings a compulsory fixed cost to enterprises. And to be honest, the people earning below the minimum wage in Malaysia are almost is very, very small percentage of the actual working population. So it's an issue that regards mostly unskilled workers and foreign workers. So indeed, we don't really have an issue with minimum wage in Malaysia. So I think that is appropriate to look at the issue from a different perspective. So the government is right in going in a different direction, though I'm not sure if this is the right direction, but surely it is a different approach, and it is good to move in a different direction.
Now, Carmelo, in Malaysia, apart from the low wages, we encounter a persistent issue of mismatched skills and available positions. So really, how might the progressive wage model be instrumental in resolving this particular challenge?
It can provide support in one sense, I think, not really playing a role in wage determination, but because incentives are offered for people that go for courses and trainings, the policy may, let's say, indirectly divert people toward a reskilling in the direction of what the labor market is demanding. So probably that could be indeed the most beneficial part of the policy, so which is not really what the policy intends to achieve, will be an unintended consequence, but a positive one. So in that sense, having these incentives for courses and reskilling initiatives could push people to look at what market need, what employers need, and to push them toward classes, trainings, courses that try to fill the gap in that mismatch.
Now, Malaysia's progressive wage model, they took inspiration from Singapore's. What improvements can you suggest to enhance this policy?
I think that the point that is really at the core of this approach, like Singapore perceive it, is that going for courses and classes and reskilling increase indeed productivity. And I beg to differ in the sense that it may create the effect of creating an inflation of courses, okay, and bringing people and employers to incentivize their people to go for these courses for the sake of the incentives, rather than for actual increase in productivity. So you indeed decrease productivity because people are spending more time going for courses than actually working. So I think that we need to find somehow some mechanism in the nature of the courses and the numbers of the courses that are offered and can be indeed followed, so not to avoid an inflation of courses and courses that pop up in the market just because the government is putting money there. So you create an artificial supply of courses and an artificial demand for courses that when eventually the package or the incentives finish, then we have a bubble and a lot of new training companies all of a sudden will close down. So we have to look somehow not to create a training bubble.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. That was Carmelo Ferlito, CEO for the Center of Market Education, giving us his views on the progressive wage model that the government looks like it's pursuing, at least for next year. I think there's still some questions left unanswered. The actual, of course, the test is really the implementation of it and how many companies, especially the micro, small, medium enterprises, really take up this offer by the government, especially the cash incentives that might really be driving in terms of like the rollout of it. But up next, we're going to find out how the government intends to regulate social media platforms in the country. Stay tuned for that. BFM 89.9.
You have been listening to a podcast from BFM 89.9, the business station. For more stories of the same kind, download the BFM app.